What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I wanted to make a video going over the last 3 or 4 games in the Battlefield franchise and covering some of the different aspects that I hope Battlefield 2042 takes from those games. Each of those installments have their pros and cons, and there's definitely plenty of stuff that I'd love to see make a return, but there's also a lot of stuff that I definitely don't want to see return either. So this time next week I'll also be making a video on the aspects that I hope don't return from those same games. So if you're interested in seeing that one, then be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you don't miss out. I'm going to be covering Battlefield 4, 1 and 5 in these videos. I was going to cover Battlefield 3 as well, however I think most of the stuff in Battlefield 4 will probably cover the same stuff from Battlefield 3 anyway, so just to save some time I'm going to be leaving Battlefield 3 out of this one. Also keep in mind this is mostly focusing on the actual mechanics and the features within the game, not so much content, as I've already covered that in the past. So I'm not so much going to be talking about the maps and the weapons and all that, rather the actual elements of the games themselves. But with that out of the way, guys, let's get stuck right into it, starting off with what I would love to see return from Battlefield 4. The first thing that comes to mind for me is the Commander mode from Battlefield 4, and funnily enough I do actually have a full video on this coming up next week, but Commander mode was one thing from Battlefield 4 that I would love to see return in Battlefield 2042. For those who don't know what Commander mode was, it essentially allowed you to join a game as the commander rather than a soldier, and you could instruct your team to attack certain objectives and even use certain abilities like cruise missiles and EMPs, and the best part about it was that you could actually do it from a tablet rather than having to be in game. This was such an awesome feature within the game, although it was actually in some of the previous games as well, but the way it was done in Battlefield 4 was so well done in my opinion, being able to use this feature without even needing to be at your PC or your console. And although I rarely ever played it because I personally just preferred playing the actual game, it was definitely an awesome feature that gave a really unique way to play the game, as well as being able to play from a remote location. Maybe all your mates were online but your younger brother was playing a different game and you just couldn't squad up with your mates, so you could actually just jump on the tablet and play with them as the commander instead. It was such an awesome addition that I think would be perfectly suited to Battlefield 2042, mostly due to the extreme scale of the game. Having a commander to organize and send out orders to the squad leaders would make it feel like you're really a part of a massive battle, and it would be awesome to see how 2 commanders could go head to head considering the scale of the game and the massive player counts. It'd pretty much be like a game of 4D chess on steroids, and I just think it would fit perfectly with this game to give the teams a really cohesive feeling, with one person sending orders and making sure that all 64 players are on the same page. They have teased it slightly in some of their interviews, however I feel like it was mostly teasing the possibility of it returning in a future title, so personally I don't think it will be making a return, but I would absolutely love to be proven wrong, and for me that is easily the main feature that I would love to see return from Battlefield 4 in the new installment. Now moving on, we have Battlefield 1, and although I have actually covered this in a video, I have to talk about it here again, as the feature that I would love to see returning would be the BEHEMOTH system. Personally, the BEHEMOTH system was one of my favourite additions to any shooter that I've ever played. It was a somewhat controversial topic during the lifespan of the game, simply because some people really enjoyed it and others thought it took away the need to sort of play the objective since you could just fall back on a behemoth, but for me personally I think it was probably my favourite part about the game. Seeing that airship arrive to the battle and just raining down hell on the enemy team was such an immersive and exciting experience. To this day I still stop and stare whenever a behemoth makes its way into the battle, and not only were they super immersive and fun to use, but they really did help out with the balancing of the game if the team who got one actually made the most of it. One area that many shooters suffer with is the team balancing, where one team just has far better players and it causes a bit of a landslide victory, which isn't really fun for anyone. It sucks to be on the receiving end of that, and it also sucks to be on the dominant team because the game just ends way too fast and there doesn't really feel like there's any sort of challenge. So unbalanced teams are always one of the worst things that can happen in a multiplayer shooter. Well, the Behemoth system fixed that to a certain degree, not completely eradicating the issue overall, but doing what it could to somewhat balance out the teams and give that losing team a bit of a push to try and even the game up. And if they made the most of it, more often than not it would help get the game to be a lot closer by the end, which I think is a pretty fun result for everyone. The losing team gets a much better shot at winning, and the winning team gets a bit of a challenge and they sort of have to dig in and survive that push, which just makes their win all that much better if they do manage to hold on. Like I said, it didn't completely fix the team balancing or anything. Sometimes a behemoth would arrive and it literally would not change a single thing, but even in that case it was still such an awesome sight to see, and if the airship did get taken out, it obviously came crashing to the ground, at the very least creating a bit of a spectacle if it didn't do its job in balancing out the game. So for me, the Behemoth system is easily the aspect of Battlefield 1 that I love to see make a return in Battlefield 2042. Now, moving on to Battlefield 5, and while personally there's not all that many elements to this game that I would love to see sticking around, one thing that I absolutely loved about this game was the movement. Don't get me wrong, in some areas it was possibly a little bit too fast and sort of over the top. The crouch sliding spam around corners and up hills and stuff was kind of off-putting at times for sure, but I think overall it really did make the game feel very smooth and not as janky as some of the older titles. And although it definitely might be a little bit unrealistic to just slide around on your knees like a maniac, I think it does do more positive for the game than it does negative for the immersion. Going back and playing Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 4 after having played a lot of Battlefield 5, those games really do feel a lot less smooth, and they definitely just feel a lot older because the movement in those games wasn't ideal compared to where it is today. Now, I don't think that's really a negative towards those games, as the movement didn't feel bad at the time, but I just think the movement has come a long way across all shooters, to be honest, and so it's something that I feel is just going to get better and better as new games come out, just the same way that gunplay is always improving as well. Look at games like Halo and Call of Duty. Both of those games have always had really solid gameplay, and yet the movement in the most recent Call of Duty games has been improved, and looking at Halo Infinite, it literally looked like a completely different game at times in regards to the movement. So I think it's just something that every game is doing better now, and I really hope the Battlefield follows that trend as well. I think Battlefield 5 had some really good movement, possibly just the slightest bit too quick if I had to pick out a negative, so if they went to some sort of mix between Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5, where you can still slide and dive and stuff like that, but it's just not quite as, I guess, aggressive as Battlefield 5, then I think that would be awesome, but I also would not be mad if it's the same sort of style as what we saw in Battlefield 5, because honestly, I'd much rather a fast, sort of smooth experience at the cost of immersion, rather than a more realistic game at the cost of fun and smooth flowing gameplay. So those are the main aspects of each of those games that I would love to see return in Battlefield 2042. There are probably a heap of other little aspects that I'd love to see make a comeback as well, but as for the more prominent, important details, those are my picks anyway. As always, I'm excited to hear what you guys agree or disagree with, or if there are any other aspects that you'd love to see return yourself. So feel free to leave a comment down below and let us know what you guys would choose to return in Battlefield 2042. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you are new, then consider subscribing to the channel with those notifications on. If you guys want to support the content that I make here on YouTube, then consider becoming a channel member. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.